you over there. I see you struggling with the numbers, but don't have no fear, cause I'm right here. We're gonna grow and learn together, there's no need to despair. Math cool like breeze, I can learn it with ease. So leave your concerns because it's time to learn.
Hey guys, so for today's video we will continue to look at place value names but for decimals. So to begin, let's look a bit more at decimals. Now, I introduced decimals a bit in the very first video when we looked at different sets of numbers. We found that some decimals belong to the set of rational numbers labeled by Q, and all decimals are a part of the real number set labeled by R. If you remember the special property that decimals in set Q have, then be sure to comment below. But seriously, what are decimals? We can answer this question by taking a look at the number line. Now, the number line shows for the most part numbers as we count them, separated by one whole step. But if we were to zoom in on the number line, we would see that in between these whole numbers, there exist other numbers that represent a part of the whole. Some of these numbers can be written as decimals, which is basically a bunch of digits separated by what we call a decimal point. The digits to the left of the decimal point represent the whole part of the number, and the digits to the right of the decimal point represent a part of the whole. Let's look at some examples while learning about the place value names for decimals. Now, 1.4 is found between the numbers 1 and 2 on the number line. We know this because 1 represents the whole number portion and 0.4 represents the part of the whole that would have taken us to 2. But exactly where between 1 and 2 does 1.4 fall? By standard, 0.4 means that if we divide the space between two whole numbers into 10, then 0.4 would be the fourth space away from the first whole number. So in this case, 1.4 means 1 and 4 out of 10 parts away from 1. By this definition, the first place value name is tenths, and we say that the 4 in 1.4 has a place value of tenths. Now let's look at another decimal, say 6.75. In this case, 6.75 is located between 6 and 7 because, again, 6 represents the whole number portion of the number. Now, by standard, if there are two digits on the right of the decimal point, we would divide the space between 6 and 7 into 100 smaller spaces, and 6.75 would be found at the 75th space, which as groups would be 7 tenths and 5 out of 100 spaces. This is our second place value name, hundredths, and we say that the place value for 5 in the number 6.75 is 5 hundredths. Now, I know that you've heard me say 6.75 about 5 times now, and you're probably wondering, why am I not saying 6.75 instead? So let's take a pause here to learn a little about how to read decimals. Now, to be honest, I learned this while making this video because even though I was taught how to read decimals ever since I learned about them, I don't remember ever learning about why. So if you're just learning about decimals or you've been knowing about them, I'm about to blow your mind. A joke, it's really simple. Now let's take a look at these numbers. If we were to read them, they would all say the same thing, 56. This is because having zeros before a whole number doesn't change the value of the number. It's still 6 ones, 5 tens, 0 hundreds, 0 thousands, it doesn't matter. Now what about in decimal form? If we were to read these numbers as 0.56, that would be incorrect because these numbers are very different. 0.56 means we have 56 out of 100 spaces. 0.056 means it's 56 out of 1,000 and so on. In this case, it matters how many zeros there are, and so to tell them apart, we label them by saying every single digit following the decimal point. So we say 0.56, 0.056, and 0.00000056. Now, I like to teach decimals in this way because it opens up the window to really understand how decimals work, especially in relation to whole numbers. And there are more facts that we can learn through observing a few things. You know what? I'm going to do a separate video on decimals, maybe in volume 2, where we learn a bit more about how they operate, because I do not want to get too much off topic. So let's get back on track. Actually, no, wait. There's just one tip that I want to share. And it's a tip about how we know how many spaces to divide by when we know how many decimal digits there are. Now, the goal is to separate the spaces into the closest group of 10 that's bigger than the decimal portion. So, for example, 6.75 means that we have 6 wholes and 75 parts. But 75 parts of what? It can't be 10 because 75 is bigger than 10. So the next group of 10 would be 100. But there is a pattern. We can count the number of decimal digits and then add the same number of zeros behind 1 to find out. So for 1.4, there is 1 decimal digit, and so the number of spaces is 10. Similarly, for 6.75, as said before, there are 2 digits, so the number of spaces is 100. For 0.056, there are 3 decimal digits, so the number of spaces is 1000. And I think you guys are kind of getting the gist, but here's a much bigger example. Say 0.576893. There are 6 decimal digits, so we just add 6 zeros behind the 1 to get 1 million. Whew, okay, glad I got that off my chest, so let's move on. Now, as we increase the decimal digits, here are the other place value names. For the 3rd digit, we have thousandths. For the 4th digit, we have 10,000th. 5th is 100,000th, and 6th is million. And we'll stop there. Note how these names are super similar to those of the whole numbers. Here's the complete list of all the place value names that we've covered. Now let's try 2 examples. Now there are 365.25 days in a year. I know this is the weirdest thing, but this is probably one of the most well-known decimals that we know about. Let's find the place value for all the 5s in this number. The first 5 is to the left of the decimal point, and it's a part of the whole number portion. And actually, it's the first one, so the place value given to this digit is 1s. The second 5 is to the right of the decimal point and in second place, so the place value given is hundredths. How about the place value for the 2? That would be tenths. And the place value for the 3? That would be hundreds. Now let's look at another really famous decimal, pi. Not pi, pi. I know it has a name, but that's because 1, it's used widely in math across many different areas like circle and angle measurement, so you'll definitely become familiar with it later on in life if you haven't already. And 2, it's a really long decimal, and I mean really, really long. So long that there are competitions held to see who can remember the most digits in the number. I think the current record is 100,000 digits. Like, someone literally spent 16 hours recalling 100,000 digits of pi. Pi is so famous that it even has its own day, March 14th, which comes from the first 3 digits of the number. But I know we can do better than that, so let's look at the first 12 digits of pi. Now, what would be the place value of the first 9 in pi? That would be 100 thousandths. How about the place value of this digit? That would be thousands. How about this digit? That would be millions. And that concludes today's video. We learned a lot, so let's do a quick recap. Decimals are numbers found in between whole numbers on the number line and are written by standard if we think of splitting the spaces by different groups of 10. As the decimal digit increases, the place value names are as follows. So that's it, you guys. Before you go, be sure to click the like button if you liked this video. Comment below if you think you would ever enter into a pie competition or a pie eating competition, whichever is your forte. And comment also if you learned anything new in today's video. Be sure to subscribe, be a friend and tell a friend. And remember, we're all in this together because math is life.